Hi, everyone. It's Joe Veneri, the host of Fit Insider, the show where I talk with the entrepreneurs, executives, and investors who are redefining the business of fitness and wellness. Today, I'm joined by Phil Southerland, founder and CEO of Supersapiens, a company using continuous glucose monitoring to help athletes manage their energy levels. In this episode, we discuss advancements in glucose monitoring. Phil explains why his company is focused on endurance athletes and high performance, and he shares his vision for using sports as a platform to change the health of the world. A quick reminder before we get into today's show. Every Tuesday, we send a weekly newsletter filled with insights and analysis on the business of fitness and wellness. Join other decision makers and industry operators by subscribing at insider.fit.co. Let's get into it. Hi, Phil. Welcome to Fit Insider. Thanks for joining us.
Great to be here, Joe.
Looking forward very much so to today's conversation. I think what you're working on, some really interesting components in a space that's really starting to heat up. But to kick things off, can you maybe just introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about Supersapiens?
Yeah, so my name's Phil Southerland, CEO, founder here at Supersapiens. Also the CEO, co-founder, Team Novo Nordisk. Athlete, cyclist. I've got four kids, so I ride my bike now at nights and mornings predominantly, but that's my drug of choice, the bike. And yeah, just really excited about Supersapiens, bringing energy management, visibility to what's going on inside your bloodstream from a glucose perspective to athletes for the first time, and hopefully help people achieve goals they once thought were impossible by fueling appropriately and doing it at the right time to unlock goals, dreams, and at the end of the day, help you be the best of you. We're not a miracle worker, but we help you become the best of you. And that's, I think, what we all want in the world of sports and fitness.
Yeah, absolutely. I think so many things kind of combining there, maybe to get you to this place, having early in life at a very young age being diagnosed with type 1 diabetes, growing up as an athlete, and then getting into cycling, as you mentioned. I think maybe can you just talk a little bit about how those factors led you to starting Supersapiens and how it kind of motivates you to continue to build this company?
Yeah, I mean, it's glucose has been at the key of life for me for my entire life, frankly. I was diagnosed with diabetes at 7 months of age. Parents were told I'd be dead or blind by 25. And that was our journey into diabetes. Way back when it was squeezing urine out of a diaper onto a test strip to find out where glucose was 2 hours in the past. And really, like, a lot of the journey with diabetes was me finding out what worked for me thinking that this was best for a person with diabetes, me thinking it applied to people with diabetes. But then what's really cool about Supersapiens now, one of my biggest passions, that now seeing the data of the non-diabetic audience, they've helped normalize me. And like all these journeys that have happened and lessons I've learned, it's just phenomenal for me personally just to see them apply to a non-diabetic audience, an audience of people with functional pancreas, as we like to call it. So I learned the first time in sport, at swim practice, right, that if I had good control of glucose, I could win. If I had bad control of glucose, I would fail. That was at 6 years old. So you can say at 6, I became hyper obsessed about glucose control as a proxy for performance. Then, I'm not trying to create a boring society with Supersapiens. I want people to exercise as either your prebate, like earn the food you want to eat, or it's a rebate from the food you've already eaten, right? It's exercise is what brings balance. And at 12, I started riding bikes so that I could eat a Snickers bar. Because if I didn't have the patience to wait for insulin to kick in, but if I rode my bike to a gas station, I could eat a candy bar and then ride my bike around the neighborhood, and I'd come home and my glucose would be great. And the world of cycling in America, there's really, most people quit at 16 years old, right? Because when a guy gets a car, or then you start chasing girls, and you quit cycling because why ride a bike if you have a car and you have girls? But I was raised by a single mom. We didn't have any money, so couldn't afford a car. So I kept riding my bike, and I was too awkward to talk to girls in high school, so I kept riding a bike. And by 18 years old, I was top 10 in the nation, junior national criterium championships. Been winning a lot of races at a dominant team in the Southeast. Went to the University of Georgia, was top 10, again, 9th place U23 national road race championships. I wanted to be a cyclist. That was my goal in life, was to be a pro cyclist. But in college, I met a guy with diabetes, and he said, "Phil, you're my hero. Seeing you win is proof that I can win one day too." And that was Joe Eldridge. We became good buddies. we had the same insulins, the same meter, the same test strips, but the only difference was I used them a lot and Joe didn't. And that's completely normal that people with diabetes, it's a 365-day a year job, 24 hours a day. It's about 300 decisions per day a person with diabetes kind of thinks about from a life or death perspective. And you don't get any reward for that, right? So a lot of people suffer from diabetes burnout, right? They just don't want to take care of it. And Joe had that moment in time in college where everything else was more important. But through our friendship and through the bike, we got Joe focused on diabetes care, as a proxy for performance on the bike. So he was able to save his life. And so when Joe told me, Phil, thank you, you saved my life. Because of you, I'm going to see my grandkids grow up. That was a game changer for me. And really helping somebody was much bigger reward than I ever got from putting my arms in the air, in victory. And figured that maybe we could use the bike as a platform to, help more people, to inspire more people to take that same journey that Joe did from not in control to in control. And when he was in control, he was happy. He's healthy. He was better in it. He was confident, better on the bike. So that was the starting of Team Type 1 business plan class project. Got $400 in venture funding, and 16 years later, with multiple Fortune 100 or Fortune 500 partners in the world of big pharma, medtech, we built the greatest global source of hope and inspiration for people with diabetes. And it was solving a problem for the athletes of Team Novo Nordisk. And I've been using CGM for 15 years. Like, I first got on a retrospective study in 1999 where I got to see the data 3 days later. Really cool, learned a lot. But the first time I had forward facing was 2005. And in 20 days with the CGM, I learned more about what everything did to my body than in 23 years of checking my glucose 20 times a day. And then it's because of CGM that Team Type 1 could race across America. Because of CGM, I could put athletes into the professional peloton with diabetes. And it's because of continuous glucose monitoring that we were able to field an all-diabetic pro cycling team, Team Novo Nordisk, to inspire, educate, and empower the world affected by diabetes. So I'm super grateful for this technology, just personally, professionally, because it's continuous glucose monitoring technology has allowed us to inspire the world with diabetes. This used to be, diagnosis day used to be the worst day in life for people. But now, because of Team Novo Nordisk, we got 9 million fans on social media. Because of Team Novo Nordisk, kids are diagnosed in the hospital. And what used to be the worst day is now the best day because they've applied for our Talent ID camp. And I was at camp in summer with the best 25 out of 100 kids this year in France. And 3 of them told me that they had applied for Talent ID camp from the hospital bed. So there they were given their doctors were telling them, your life is over. You can't pursue a dream anymore. But the internet and our website and our Facebook group and our videos showed them that this might be the best thing that ever happened to them. And so with sport being the platform and success in sport kind of making the megaphone reach a lot farther, we had to solve for priming for our athletes, getting ready for activity, glucose control during activity, and then obviously glucose control as a proxy for recovery. I've been doing this for 15 years on a systematic basis. But the during was always a challenge. We had sensors, but they were in our jersey pockets. And sport is about variable, life is about variable. And we just had too many bad days because of something that was controllable if we'd have had the data. So Chip Hawkins, CEO of Wahoo Fitness, has become a good friend just in what an amazing company he's built at Wahoo. But he hacked it for me. And he got me glucose from my sensor to the bike computer in November of 2018. And after 15 days, I've learned more about 15 days of business development, riding my bike, which you'll see everything I do in business is so that I can ride my bike more for business. But in 15 days of seeing all the data, I learned more about how to fuel myself on the bike than in the prior 15 years of having a sensor in my pocket or the prior 20 years of riding and racing a bike. I was like, this is the best invention I've ever had. Got to bring it to market. And was fortunate to meet Todd Furneaux, my co-founder president here at Supersapiens, who was like, Phil, every race over 3 hours I've ever done, I've ended up in the medical tent. Like this, I wish this technology existed when I was racing. Like if you could get a deal with a sensor company, I'd quit my job and come help you build this brand because we could forever change the world of sport. we could make all of my prior failures successes and make all the negativity I had from competition into positivity, that's just going to get more people active. Fortunately, I have had a great relationship with Abbott over the years. They were my very first sponsor back in 2006. They gave a massive and just very generous, life-changing donation to the Team Type 1 Foundation, providing blood glucose testing supplies to the government of Rwanda for a 4-year period, and then took a chance and chose us to help them expand continuous monitoring outside of the diabetes market. So it's been a real interesting chain of events that's brought us to this point. We've learned a lot over the past couple of years, creating the technology, raising the capital, building the team, and then ultimately having a product in consumers' hands. So you asked a small question and I took a very long-winded answer. So I'll pause, put it back in your court.
No, all very, I think, important and inspiring to the overall story, and talking about how you not only bring this company to life, but the product to market. I appreciate you sharing all that, and it lends a great perspective. I think a number of questions I want to ask as a follow-up, but maybe just as a starting point. There's obviously, in your case, the overlap between diabetes, having to manage that while still wanting to be an athlete, and the obvious kind of tie-in to performance. But more broadly, over the last 3 years maybe, but really in the last 18 months, the number of glucose monitoring companies kind of coming to market, the metabolic health focus that we see kind of popping up. From a timing perspective, is there maybe why now? How do you think about the interest in the space, the kind of competition coming to the space, even if you want to think of it that way, and why the kind of interest in this, both the technology and the software to manage and have the awareness of glucose, even for somebody who's not diabetic, is that starting to kind of filter into the mainstream?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting. It's fun to see it all, see this be the hot space, right? And everyone's jumping at the business concept of, I can educate the public. And I mean, you see what the other companies in the US are doing, raising awareness, metabolic health and fitness, and, what you eat does have an impact on your glucose, and you are in control of those decisions. So I think it's great that people are getting this awareness, that companies and investors are putting money into the space, because there's a massive opportunity here. Right? There's 7 billion people in the world who would benefit from being on the sensor. But we're taking the lens of it's athletes professional athletes are still idolized. They're still the heroes of the world. And if people can see these professional athletes using this as a proxy for performance, and then we've data showcasing that the more you exercise, actually the better your glucose is when you're not exercising, then athletes can become the heroes to inspire people to go get active. Because when you put this on and, look, if you go, my favorite food is Mexican. We got this phenomenal Mexican restaurant down the road from the house. They've got these Cadillac margaritas that are just to die for, literally, I guess the data would say. Todd would see his glucose go to 190, and he just got pissed because the glucose was always, it's the highest of any meal that he would get to. And so what did he do? He went on a 10-mile run before the lunch one day, and his glucose only went to 118. Right. And so it was exercise was the reason he could have that great meal and not have a massive glucose variation as a consequence. And to me, it's interesting. I first put sensors on non-diabetic, athletes in 2008. I had this Ian McGregor. I don't know if you've interviewed him. He's the CEO, founder of Scratch Labs. Works with Alan Lim. Amazing story of that company and how they've grown in the sports nutrition world here in the US. But I remember Ian at training camp in 2008 eating cake, drinking Coke, and the sensors at the time measured long periods of time. Ours is minute by minute. So you get very acute data and you get to see all the changes. But those older sensors, you'd see averages. But he's like, I can't get my glucose to go above 100. I can't get my glucose. I'm so pissed. This is stupid. I was like, Ian, you've got a functional pancreas. It's a good thing. Don't worry about it. And he's a guy that when he was a pro, you could see his heartbeat. He was so lean. You could see all his ribs. Amazing athlete, phenomenal person. But the next day at Mount Figueroa, when we're doing a 1 hour full gas effort of climbers, at the top, Ian's glucose was 155 with a double arrow up. And I said, that shouldn't happen. So that was this idea of glucose management for athletes it's been in the brain for a long time. But you look at Abbott and their journey to kind of manufacturing and the capacity for scale. Dexcom has started. There's a lot of TV, a lot of noise. I mean, the company, you see TV ads every night for continuous glucose monitoring and the value it brings to people with diabetes. And for people with diabetes, this is an absolute game changer. You go from taking a screenshot. In my case, I was doing 20 blood glucose checks per day. That's 20 photos, 20 moments in time, but nothing more. But if you check 3 times in 15 minutes, you can get a trend of where your direction's going. But that's what a CGM is. You don't just see where you are now, but you see where you're going. And that where you're going, that's what fuels the decision. Do I drink water now, or do I drink Gatorade, Morton now, or Gatorade or Coke? Or do I drink water, or do I eat salad and protein, or can I have a bigger carbohydrate meal? So bringing this awareness, like I used to think I was very different, right? And I used to think the glucose zones for me as a person with diabetes were unique to a person with diabetes, prevent hypoglycemia. No, I know like in 2006 at the Race Across America, we learned that if our glucose is between 140 and 180, as diabetic athletes, we feel really good. So again, we thought that was just applied to people with diabetes. But now the data that we're seeing in athletes is majority of athletes, when they feel really good when they're performing, their glucose is between 140 and 180. Some is above 200 for hours at a time. And it's been really normalizing for me to see all of the variation and the times when the spikes at the start of exercise that I have, people without diabetes have. The drops in glucose 3 hours into a bike ride that I have, people without diabetes have. And really helping people see the control that they have and the impact their nutrition has on their goals in life. And that goal could be gold medal in Tokyo, which Christian Blumenfeld won in the triathlon, Eliud Kipchoge in the marathon. We're on the best endurance athletes in the world. They're using our system to optimize their fueling, but they have sports scientists, right? Our product is not, it's going to help them optimize, but the value is exponentialized for, a person like me who's got, 4 kids and 2 jobs, and I don't have time to go spend an hour with a sports scientist and talk about nutrition strategies. I mean, I've got a bunch of them on our advisory board, so I get to ask some questions, but it's the data and having access to the data that helps me fuel appropriately. And really we can help people solve for their nutrition strategies, because a well-fueled athlete is a well-performed athlete, is a happy athlete. And that's someone who's going to get someone else active. And that's what we need. We need a more active world if we're going to stop the trends in health that are very bleak right now.
Absolutely. I think one of the more interesting things about Supersapiens' approach to this market and glucose monitoring in general is this piece where you're talking about athletes and endurance athletes. And for me, immediately when I see it, even in some of maybe the marketing branding, it feels, at least in my mind, it jumps to like somebody like Whoop, who the wearable device is not necessarily something new. There are a lot of different takes on it, but the focus on this high performance, on the athlete, on training, it feels in kind of a league of its own. And people gravitate to that because they see it as, hey, if I can get 1% better, I'm willing to use this and continue to use it, versus, let's say, a Fitbit, where it's a general device. Who is it for? Yeah. What does it give us exactly? So this approach kind of gives you, an unfair advantage over other companies who are taking a broad approach. And I don't know your thoughts around, the athlete is also going to be more inclined to keep it on longer and continue to pay and continue to engage, where the average person might be less willing or take it off sooner. How do you think about, that kind of adherence over time? Does the average person, are they going to continue to check and monitor if they don't need it for performance, if they don't need it for diabetes treatment? How do you make sure folks stay engaged with it over the long run?
Yeah, I think that's up to us and the recommendation engine that we can provide to people, right? And I've got 2 sensors on my arm. I've had sensors on my arm for nonstop since 2000. 2007 is really when I got the first, you're on and you're never coming off again, Phil. So I've been accustomed to, what's that battery on your arm? What's that? Is that a nicotine patch? Is that I'm immune to that stuff, but I can understand for some people, I'm different. People think I'm diabetic. So I don't expect everyone to stay on all the time. I do think the weekend warrior who wants to go out on Saturday and have the best, they've got a 3-hour group ride and that's their moment of glory. they're going to want this thing because they're going to want to perform, and they're going to realize that, A, it helps them perform better. B, it helps them kind of stay healthier, stay lean. We're not a weight loss company, but if you look at the majority of our, Chris Froome, who's one of our investors and advisors, it's like, I've used it for weight loss. It's like, well, okay, Chris, I didn't ask you to say that, but it's each person gets their own nugget. But we have to become more of a platform, and with some of the machine learning magic we have working, it's a far ways off, but we will be able to predict things that are going to happen before they happen, and being able to solve for a low glucose before it happens that you take action on, that then allows you to stay at your optimal self, whether that's on the bike, running, or before a big decision at work. I think we're onto something. We just don't know, one, how big it can be. I know how big it can be, but how long it's going to take to get there.
Sure.
And in the sports world, it typically takes 7 years from idea being used by the professional athletes till it's adopted by the masses. We would love to speed that up, but I'm starting to have the realization that it's just, we have to strap on for the journey. This is not going to be an overnight hoorah off from the sunset. It's going to take time and lessons and learnings and really listening to our customers. Like, how can we add more value to their lives on a daily basis? Whether you're using the sensor or not using the sensor, you can still be on the journey to become a super sapien. And that's what we want to empower everyone to do, is get on the journey to become a super sapien, become the best of yourself. We can never be anything more than that, but becoming the best of yourself is something that now people have in their control. And that's, to me, is really exciting.
For sure. And I think this technology will play a key role in that. And to your point, so many kind of opportunities we don't even know about yet that will continue to evolve. And I do want to look ahead before we wrap up. But one thing that's come up a couple of times is the glucose monitors themselves. I believe you all have a partnership with Abbott, and there are a couple other kind of almost not a monopoly, a duopoly maybe in that space, a limited number of folks who are making the device. Is there a risk in becoming overly reliant on any hardware manufacturer, given that you're not producing that glucose monitor yourself? How do you think about that partnership and how your software benefits that, but also the risk that, and again, I don't know what the partnership, the intricacies look like, but them maybe cutting you off or another software provider emerging? How does that partnership work? How do you think about the risks and the opportunities?
Yeah, I mean, we've been very diligent about mitigating that risk and making sure that our success, if we can you look at where Abbott is completely dominated right now, is the diabetes market. They've got 3 million consumers, which is more than any other customer. The volume of revenue they're doing is more than any other supplier. And they've got the most accurate sensor over 14 days. If I'm going to be tied to a horse, I want to be tied to the best horse. And kind of my modus operandi has always been long-term, mutually beneficial relationships. So if you look at Abbott in the diabetes market, then us in the sports market, working to get to the middle. Because as I said, there's 7 billion people who would benefit. Every human's an athlete, but every athlete with a goal is our target customer. So can we just work with Abbott to get from the opposite ends of the spectrum to the centerfold? And the more people that we can collectively get on sensors together, I call it world domination, the healthier society will be. And again, as I said, this is a long journey. So I've been in the pharma medtech world, marketed a variety of drugs, devices for companies through cycling jerseys and promotional material. And the governing bodies are critically important to follow, right? You got to follow the pathways. And so we are the only company with a CE mark approval as a sports performance device in Europe. The other companies, again, and I love what they're doing because they're creating great awareness. There's got lots of buzz about CGM. It's a hot topic right now. And then, so I think with Levels, NutriSense, others, they're doing good work, but they're using products indicated for people with diabetes for people without diabetes. And we'll see how the FDA takes a look at that over time. I hope they're okay, but there's tremendous risk in going against the regulatory body. So when you look at mitigating risk, from my perspective, it's not overnight. So let's do things the right way. And if it takes us 10 years to get to America, it's not going to. But if it did, because we followed all the steps the right way, that would mean that once we got here, we're sustainable and we can scale immediately. And Abbott took a chance on me 15 years ago and has grown into the largest source of hope and inspiration for people with diabetes. It was just a small snowball. And here we are again they took another chance on us and our belief that we could use sport as a platform to change the health of the world. But the health of the world got to where it is not in one night, but over a period of time. And so it's going to take us collectively a period of time to kind of not just stop the trend, but stop the trend and reverse it, back into let's all get healthy together by getting active.
Yeah, absolutely. With that, kind of building on this, not only with Abbott and whether or not there's kind of the requisite medical clearances and the use cases, is it approved? How do you think about the technology itself for the monitor evolving? Just frankly, I don't know enough about it beyond maybe headlines or different papers that I've read that show the interest in moving towards the transdermal or on top of the skin sensing or built into a smartwatch, with somebody like Apple taking interest in that. Is that technology close enough that you have to say, hey, what would we do when that happens? Or is it still if that happens?
Everything's impossible until it's here, right? So you got to assume that that stuff is going to come over time. But in the world of sport, and really, frankly, in today's age, people want accuracy, right? And it is not possible. And we've talked to the leading scientists and research institutes, people who have kind of pushed this space forward for a lot of years about the transdermal. Yeah, you might be able to get a red, green, yellow, but to get a specific number and the trend of where your glucose is going, it's a ways out. So yeah, these sensors will get smaller over time. The market's going to evolve, but I'm not going to move to a cheaper product, right? That's less accurate. For me, accuracy is the fundamental key that we have to have. Otherwise, we're just selling a false bag of goods to the consumers. And so that's why I'm so proud to be, working with Abbott, number one. And then number two, like the sensing technology we have and the roadmap pipeline that we have, it's pretty exciting. Like we've got some really cool things coming. And even the sensor we have today, the Libre Sense, it's, that's not approved in the US, right? It's only a CE marked and we're selling in Europe, but it's Bluetooth. It is the only minute-by-minute Bluetooth sensor on the market. And so our customers scan the sensor once, and then you don't have to scan for 14 days because it's continually sending the signal. And we're coming out, I guess, soon with this wrist reader, or energy band, we call it. And it'll be the only, looks like a Fitbit kind of, but it tells you glucose, it tells you the trend. So it's the only device of this kind in the world, period. And we just have to continue giving people the information. And the easier people get the info, the easier they can learn what to do because of the info, the more value they're going to get out of the ecosystem. And that's, I don't know. So, Joe, we haven't figured it all out yet. That's like, we've got a lot of ideas. We're trying to be focused and disciplined as a company and really just to take the long view and like to do the fundamentals right today, the fundamentals right tomorrow, so that 5 years from now, we're the company that changed the sports world forever. And for those who are the gold medals we've won and the yellow jerseys and stage ones at the Tour de France and other races that we've been a part of, like the world record in Ironman with Jan Frodeno, Eliud Kipchoge and Tokyo, Christian Blumenfeld in Tokyo, gold medals. We're proud of that, but we won't consider ourselves a success until those achievements have turned into, a swath of people getting off the couch for the first time in 20 years, deciding now to be active and use the Supersapiens ecosystem to become the best of themselves. That might just be losing 20 pounds. That might just be, exercising more regularly. But whoever you are, we can all take a step today, a step tomorrow towards being better versions of ourselves. And I just hope the data can be a good guider on that journey for the individual consumer.
Yeah, and I'm sure that it will be. There's so many aspects of what you just said, whether it's taking the long view and recognizing it's going to take time, we talk about it ourselves. My brother and I, as we're building the various initiatives we're working on, but also Fit Insider, taking this ultra marathon view that it's going to take the long run and it's better than getting distracted in the near term. But then the other aspects around sports, that, where you're talking about personalization and taking a science and data-backed approach to not only nutrition, but performance, and this making inroads into everyday life for people where it has those applications certainly takes time. And we've seen it with other technologies before. Down that path, I guess as we get towards the end of the conversation, you recently, earlier this year, raised $13.5 million in funding, obviously going towards taking this long view and putting that capital to work to achieve those benchmarks. You mentioned releasing the wrist-worn device to be able to look down and kind of see what those glucose levels are. What else is on the roadmap? Are you excited about? Maybe should we be on the lookout for as you both put that investment to work and just continue to build into the future?
Yeah, we're going to look. I think we launched a product in December, right? That was, here's your glucose, here's the trend, good luck, which was great. I thought it was great because I know where every bit of glucose and where it needs to be. We took the wrong approach. People need guidance, and so one step that I think you can see now in the app in Europe is we've got it broken down into, call it 3 pillars, prime, the lead up to activity, perform, which is a different glucose target for that zone when you're actually active, and then recovery, the off hours, we like to call them. So, and a different set of glucose guidance and targets for those ranges. So kind of help breaking the different phases of your day into different targets in glucose. And then you need to learn through trial and error to get there. And then it's, it costs €5 a day, right? Which the people open our app 8 times a day. So they get a good value per open. But when I'm on a bike ride for 3 hours, I see 180 data points, right? And so you think of the cost per data point in that regard, it's a very fractional expense for the amount of value data you get. So we need to bring it, we're partnered with Garmin. So with a select number of Garmin devices, the sensor will go to the phone and the phone will send the data to the Garmin. But Wahoo is coming in time, Zwift will come in time. Other places where people want to be active, we need to do a job of making this data, giving this data in front of them, whether that's a mirror where you're doing workouts at home or tonal, things of that nature, or Technogym, right? Any place that you are going to be active, we need to be able to get your glucose data to the screen in front of you so that you can optimize that activity. So that's all on the roadmap. And then we just got to get to more places and help more people, right? So partnering with various sports organizations and we're doing a lot of research right now, which is not going to do anything for my sales today or tomorrow, but we're doing a menstrual cycle study with Findura Institute in Norway. You think of the female athlete and the different fueling strategies they need based on where they are in the menstrual cycle. So trying to learn and help the female audience optimize for, so much more variability there than on the men's side. And you look at female athletes in sport, like the researchers have often taken the landscape of women are too complex. There's too many variables. So let's study controlled environments, study men, right? So I think we have a big opportunity. Glucose is one of the most complex data sets in the world. So we might as well study it with the others previously thought too complex. So we're going to focus heavily on the female audience and R&D to help the women of the world be successful athletes of the world and get more girls active. Because if more women are active, then more men will be active. And if more men are active, then we're going to be healthier. And it just exercises that pillar. And I know we're running on time, Joe, but if you look at exercise, when you're exercising, you eat better. So that's the nutritional checkbox. When you're exercising, you sleep better, right? Which is a key faction of health. I think most importantly in this day and age, especially with all the challenges in society today, when you exercise on a daily basis, your mental health is better. And we see it our core responsibility as a company, just get people active. Because if we do so, it's a healthier society, happier society. And that's what we want in the world. That's our vision at Supersapiens, is help everyone in the world become the best of themselves. And exercise is a fundamental part of that.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. It's been both athletics and exercise in general transformative for me. And so obviously in hosting this podcast and putting out the content that we do from Fit Insider is all around how do we help people live a healthier lifestyle. And in this case, talking with the founders and investors who are building these companies that hopefully enable millions, hundreds of millions, billions of people to transform their lives. I think you put it really well when you said using sport as a platform to transform health more broadly. So excited to see that. And I think listeners will be as well. If they wanted to follow along, get in touch, what's the best way to keep up with everything that you have going on?
If you want to see my late night bike rides, then I'm on Strava, Phil Southerland. But then Supersapiens, it's Supersapiens on Instagram and Twitter and Facebook. We got a great group of athletes on our Supersapiens Athletes Facebook group, where people are sharing their data, comparing. We've got all these people teaching each other now, which is, I think, really phenomenal. And, we'll be at sporting events near you from now until the end of time. And, can't wait to see you out there. So, Joe, I mean, you're educating people on the power of fitness and the power of the fitness industry. And I think all of us in this industry, we have the same goal. I mean, we want to succeed in business. We want to sell more products, this, that, and the other. But when the fitness industry succeeds, more people are fit. And so I'm proud to be in the same pool with everyone else who you've had on this podcast. And congrats on all the amazing leaders in sport that you've had. So it's an honor to be here with you. And let's just keep pushing it forward. And I think together we'll see more companies grow, and we'll see more people out there active. And that's, to me, is success for the world.
Absolutely. We're both, I'm right there with you and want to continue to push. And I appreciate you making a few minutes to join us, sharing your story. Hopefully other folks take up this platform, whether it's through sport, through starting a company, through being active and encouraging activity and health in their communities, whatever they can do. We basically need all the help we can get on that front. Yeah. So thanks for making a few minutes and absolutely excited to share this conversation.
Cool. Thanks so much, Joe.
Thank you. Thanks everyone for listening to today's episode. For more from Fit Insider, visit insider.fit.co and subscribe to our weekly newsletter for insights and analysis on the business of fitness and wellness. Then go ahead and subscribe, rate, and review the podcast. See you next time.